Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, wherever you guys are. So I'm Niken Patel. I look forward to covering this very important topic that we feel is pretty foundational and basic in terms of people who are ready to start on their AI journey or have already started on that AI journey and so on. Just be a very high level introduction. I have spent 20 plus years in the CRM CX world. This is our third company in the space. We've worked with 400 plus organizations in various capacity. And Neuron7 is really an AI and NLP tool for customer service that really focuses on diagnosing and resolving complex issues at customers within seconds. And they go obviously across all channels and across all from both front end as well as back end, so support as well as service and field service and engineering. So let's go into first, and we'll talk a little bit more about Neuron7 as we go and the use cases that we cover. But let me zero down on the topic and exactly why AI is important, what is happening in the service world first, and then really get into the tips and tricks of what you can do with your data to get ready for this revolution. So customer service is absolutely getting transformed in multiple ways. And I was struggling to come up with the top 3 trends, but these 3 are absolutely unquestionable in terms of their impact. First of all, customers are getting more and more demanding. 82% of customers expect first call resolutions, basically, right? So even if they have complex problems, even their complicated devices are down, or machines are having, or equipment is having issues, the clock starts. They want the first call that they make to an organization, they want that to be the call that resolves the problem. And it is probably the #1 source of customer satisfaction or dissatisfaction in terms of were you able to resolve that issue, especially when the equipment was down or whether there was an issue with the product or service they're using. So we can expect that that trend continuing. The second is something that has become, it was always important to capture tribal knowledge of the people that you have in your organization. It also just became urgent, and we all have seen the effects of the Great Resignation going on with COVID, but there is something else that is kind of underlying the urgency here apart from COVID, and that is by 2030, not too long from now. Most baby boomers, almost all of them, are going to hit retirement age. And so while today there is a gap in terms of the jobs that are open versus people who want to fill it, in things like field service, manufacturing, call centers, and so on, this is going to be even more acute. And the study by McKinsey shows we're going to have 2 million jobs that are unfilled just in manufacturing as an industry. And we have multiple customers saying, hey, Niken, we are sitting on a ticking time bomb. Almost 65 to 70% of my workforce is going to retire over the next 5 to 6 years. And so capturing tribal knowledge is incredibly important for us. It's a ticking time bomb. Third is probably almost every industry that we speak with, whether it's high tech, manufacturing, service industries, BPO, call centers, outcome as a service is becoming a super important goal. We're at the world where subscription based offers are going to be key, and also service that is going to drive the profitability and revenue at a company, not just selling more products. So we're going to have a world where almost every single industry, either your competitor is going to do this to you or you're going to do it to your competitor in terms of who's going to be the first to be able to support and announce a subscription-based model. We have customers that have got 3D printers that are not selling 3D printers anymore. They're selling X amount of images over the next 3 years for a particular monthly cost. We have med device companies and customers that are doing the same, and so on and so forth. So as we know it, there is key things and changes coming to the world of customer service. Now, AI and NLP are helping with some of these trends and helping solve some of these issues. And I just want to kind of bring up how much and how many technologies are at work right now, transforming every part of service. And when I say service, I mean across all channels, chatbots and the call centers, chat and service centers, field service, repair, the entire start to finish process of service, if you will. And in the call center, we have sentiment analysis, conversational AI, chatbots that are not rule-based, but AI-based, that are completely changing how call center agents and just the front end of service is working out. We have trends where AI in the whole machine space, where IoT and connected device, almost every single engineering organization is working on devices and equipment that have not only connected device, but they are also getting ready for 5G. There is telemetry data or log files being thrown out. Really, we're getting to a point where the machine is the customer, and I'm going to treat every single asset that is deployed worldwide as a customer and see what I need to do to keep that particular product up and running for my end customers. We also have companies like Neuron7 that are working on giving you insights and predictions that really are based on AI to drive better customer service. So our vision is to kind of take every single service decision that is taken in a company at scale, whether you have thousands of service personnel or hundreds of them, whatever decisions they are making on cost, whether they need to replace or repair something, what are the symptom codes, what are the resolution actions. Our vision is to kind of provide a human-assisted AI tool that can make you better and more accurate. And that is now becoming front and center as a priority. And things like RPA, where the automated million processes are being automated, and you're freeing up your agents and you're freeing up your call center folks to do more value-added stuff. So there's like a whole bunch of technologies at play trying to help you with the customer service trends that are going on. To quote Gartner here, customer service leaders plan to substantially increase their adoption of AI capabilities in the next 2 years. So we're really going to be coming to a tipping point that is going to change. So we got all these trends, we got all these technologies, but at the end of the day, AI and NLP results are going to be only as good as the data that they learned from, right? So all of this great technology is super dependent on your data. And of course, path-breaking tools like Neuron7, but I digress there. Let's come back to the main topic, which is, well, if you're going to be able to achieve some very, very serious outcomes for your organizations over the next 2 or 3 years, and they are very, very dependent on data, we felt based on all of our learnings so far, it made sense for us to kind of share some of the top tips and tricks with you. And again, I'm going to quote Gartner, where they're saying that service leaders should really, really work on getting high quality data so that they can go and support service insights and predictions and stuff like that. And we are seeing that day in and day out. We are seeing customers that have excellent quality of data show a very quick path to accuracy. Other customers need to spend quite a bit of time getting their data engineered and getting ready. But there is good news at the end of the day in terms of some of the stuff that we've learned. All right, so let's zero in. So what we thought is we probably have 20, 25 use cases: intelligence support, intelligence search, predictions, device diagnostics, start to finish in the enterprise. We forced ourselves to choose 3 basic use cases. And we said, okay, if we can use this as an example as to what can we do to transform service for you as an organization. Let's take these two and then now peel the onion back and say, okay, what are the impacts of getting the data right? Like how can you, or what are the different things that goes in terms of getting the data right so you can achieve these three use cases, right? So the first one is really getting first call resolutions by doing agent assist. So if I can somehow take 10 years of your history in your organization in terms of data, if I can take the minds of your top people, the two main sources of intelligence in a company is really your people and your data. And if we can somehow process that and leverage the latest AI and NLP techniques, we feel we can significantly increase first call resolution in a measurable way. So if you today are getting first call resolutions on 60% of your calls, we can measurably kind of get it to that 70, 80, 90%. And that's probably something that a lot of our customers are working with us on. The second is really device diagnostics. And this is parts predictions that are saving millions for the wrong parts and truck rolls. And this is where we're not just kind of taking whatever is in an input and saying, here's the output. We actually have a very structured guided navigation of what we call micro predictions, which go in and predict each step based off hundreds or millions of these things done in the past for your agents or technicians or repair center folks. And then the last one is really call deflection through intelligence support. So if I was able to add NLP and AI to things like search, can we understand the context of the question that is getting asked? As a lot of you know, on support, a lot of it is just how-to questions. How do I do certain things? What are the technical specifications of product XYZ? And search, to a large extent, has failed in providing call deflection to enterprises in our experience. And so a better way of doing it with NLP and AI is probably the third use case that we come across very, very often. And so when we look at these three, we say, well, what can I do on the data? I have the tools in terms of Neuron7 to get you to that 80, 90% accuracy. What is required on the data side? The number one thing that comes to mind is what you're seeing is what we call a heterogeneous data problem. So you can't just take a single data source. You can't just take Salesforce data, for example, and expect to have value and results in terms of everything for a simple reason where there could be data in your Jira database where your engineering organization has put in painstakingly exactly what to do to solve something. You could have KB articles in place. You could have your repair data in an Oracle ERP. And so your data or your intelligence of how to solve issues may not all just be in case data, even though there may be technician notes in there, it could be spread out. And so at the end of the day, service intelligence or AI for customer service is going to be solved by going after multiple data sources, not a single data source. And that is an assumption that you just should go with. And so, let's start with the top sources of data. CRM data, unstructured data, and device data are, we kind of forced ourselves to consolidate and say, okay, if I look at the last 20 customers we worked with, what did they have? Where was the intelligence? And this is very, very important. Your signal may be very different than the next company. So where your AI accuracy exists could be a combination of your device data and your case technician notes. Somebody else may have gold buried in Jira and repair data and case data. So it's important to figure out where your gold is buried, where your signal is, and where there is noise. And the second fundamental assumption that I would like you to at least process and internalize is the reason why this is a super important topic, the reason why data drives accuracy apart from the tool is because enterprise data and application data that was written was never meant to be read by a machine, right? So when you design your CRM tools, when you basically put in your data models for ERP and you put in your technician notes or you design your Jira notes and stuff like that, nobody was thinking, 10 years ago when you did it or what have you, hey, one day there is going to be an NLP machine or an AI machine or something like a Neuron7 that's going to process all of these records. And so I need to write them. I need to structure them in a way that a machine can read them. And since we didn't have that luxury right now, we are left with what we are left with, right? So I'm going to kind of do a very quick demo of a couple of these things to kind of give you context of what you can achieve. And then let's dig into the first set of tips and tricks for you to start with CRM data as to what you can do to kind of resolve it. But let me first kind of give you a quick visual of Neuron7 at work. So the demo I'm going to do, again, a quick 5-minute demo, is based on the assumption that Neuron7 has worked with you to process all of your technician notes, KB articles. We have done a decent job of working with your experts, and we continue to do that in real time within the tool. And then we have processed your structured data as well. And we've taken all this heterogeneous data sets across the board, and we are now ready to deploy this and go live. And it could be for your end customer themselves, but it could be for tier 1 support or so on, or even field service. So here is Salesforce. Just taking an example. This could be ServiceNow. This could be Microsoft. Anything, any of your tools. It could be ServiceMax for field service, or IFS for that matter. And you have a case that came in which says, hey, I have an issue on this product called Snap 81, where it's powering up but does not boot up. And there is an option here. And you'll see Neuron7 diagnostics just kind of sitting there, almost as if the user doesn't even realize that they left Salesforce to go to a different tool and came back. But if you look at it, your customers may have multiple ways of describing the issues that they face. So somebody can say, hey, powers up but does not boot up. Somebody else can say things like, hey, I'm seeing a blank screen. So for a device or a equipment that is not powering up, multiple people can use different words. You may have 1,000 products and 20 errors per product, so 20,000 errors or failures, and your customers may have a million different ways of describing those 20,000 errors. And so it's Neuron7's job to kind of process all incoming cases and their descriptions and be able to go parse them and say, well, I know exactly what the issue is here. I know what the customer is trying to say. And what we're doing is we are immediately, in the 2 or 3 seconds you saw this came back, Neuron7 is going in and saying, I think this is, depending on the product, the option, the description, it could have a device error. The customer will say, I'm seeing error 222 on this. It's processing all of that input to say, these are 2 symptom codes that I think are, this is what's really going on. We think these 2 out of the thousands of symptom codes you may have. It's making a prediction. It's also making a prediction on what actions should be taken. And let's say I'm somebody who's just a year old into the company, and I don't know the products very well. Snap 81 is definitely one of those 1,000 products that I've not worked with before. So typically I would just escalate to somebody else. In this case, I am just following what Neuron7 is doing, because Neuron7 is saying, hey, there have been 300 customers of Snap 81 that have seen this issue in the past that have this option. And based on everything that was done in the past, based on your KB articles, based on all of this data, this is our prediction of what's going to help you solve this issue. And it's not just taking the top prediction and the most often used prediction on the action to take. It actually is putting that in order. Do this first, do this second, do this third, do this fourth. And the agent can ignore a particular prediction from Neuron7 and move forward. Sometimes you just don't reboot a machine, so to speak, to solve an issue or look at the power source. You go beyond actions Sometimes there is actually a part replacement that is needed, and Neuron7 will give you that as well. So it is smart enough to know that there is a parent-child hierarchy, there are assemblies, and there are parts below those assemblies. It will tell you things like, now that you've seen these errors, this is the next error that is going to come your way, Mr. Customer. So everything that you're seeing on the screen is a prediction. It is predicting the cost from somebody calling in from, let's say, a Japanese customer versus somebody from Germany or somebody from Oklahoma. The prediction on the cost may be different. So we literally can kind of go in and give you predictions of everything that typically matters to a customer when they call in with a particular issue. And it's giving the agent all of the augmented intelligence to solve this issue. What actions to take? What is this issue and root cause about? Is there a part replacement needed? What is the cost of the part replacement? And so on and so forth. And you as an agent can kind of go in and say, I've done all these things. This is what worked. This is what didn't work. And now Neuron7 is learning from every explicit and implicit action. It will continuously learn from these two are actions that have been upvoted. If 10, 20 people found this useful, this particular action will decay if this was not something that was useful to resolve the issue. So it's a continuously learning mechanism. And this closed loop is the reason why the AI is going to go get better from, if you start at 65% to go to 75% to 90%, it is continuously going to get better because it is chasing the truth, so to speak. Because you have to take what I just did and multiply it for thousands of cases across the world for every single agent or customer action. And so, this is where I could get to things like first call resolution, or quickly get to the handle time getting shortened by just kind of giving this assistant to the agent. And then, you can go and add to the work order. The work order comes with its own set of predictions for a field service person or somebody who's trying to schedule it, saying, send somebody skill set 6 or more. Estimated time to fix is 10%. So all of these predictions from Neuron7 sit within your CRM tool, where the agent doesn't even know that she is looking at Neuron7 predictions and the parts that are needed to replace something and so on. So this was like a quick example of what first call resolution and diagnosis and parts prediction look like. Now, let's assume this can increase everything from turnaround time to save save money on parts. It helps how-to questions and search is something I can show later on. But this is very, very valuable. And if it is 80-90% accurate, you should see a bunch of your service metrics moving. And let's assume for a second that Neuron7 is super accurate on your data. If that is the case, what are the tips and tricks? How can we achieve what I just showed you? And let's start with the first source, which is CRM or case data. So what are the top issues? And some of these are low-hanging fruits. Some of these are complicated to solve. Let's double click on that. We forced ourselves to choose 3 again in CRM. And the first one, and this is the one that is incredibly common, even though it is counterintuitive, is every organization's case data has got codes. You may have got something like resolution code that your agents or technicians or call center folks have chosen over the years to say, this was I've solved the case, this is the resolution code. Firmware issues, this was a firmware issue, this was a hardware replacement, this was a software issue, so on and so forth. This was a how-to question, so to speak. We find that there is an incredible amount of inaccuracy when it comes to what we call classification. Now, keep in mind, data quality is not just about incomplete data. Hey, I don't have something missing. It's also about inaccurate data, where something like this is there, which or it's incomplete data. And so when you look at it, or inconsistent data, so to speak, When you look at this, we find a lot of companies that had multiple years, and you can just look at the data and see that there was a couple of years where, the process of data capture was loosely followed. An abnormal amount of data has got, or abnormal number of cases has got the first category of resolutions showing up as the root cause. And now, garbage in, garbage out. You're sending all of the stuff to AI. AI actually is processing this, thinking, well, this issue is the number one issue for multiple incoming cases and things. And it's learning the bad behavior that was demonstrated while that capture of data went on. Or even something like a top category is others, right? The agent doesn't want to really kind of go in and select. So that's where the issue is. The other thing that we see very, very commonly is overclassification. What we mean there is just too many symptom codes, right? Over a period of time, you created thousands of them, and nobody went in and cleaned up those symptom codes. A lot of them are super close to each other. They're hierarchical. There's contradictions in what's being selected. And now what happened is you have probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of records of cases that are solved that are these incorrect categories. And now you're sending all of this thing to AI saying, hey, give me beautiful symptom codes, root cause. I want root cause analysis from you. I want exactly why this error is occurring, and so on and so forth. And of course, this is where, now you have an issue where we're saying, well, should I ignore all of this data or should I go in and fix, which will take months, and so on and so forth. And this is where we have come up with our own solution where we will help you categorize the data, and I'll come to that in a minute. That kind of prevents all of that mess that you have to go to. The second one, this is probably a big pet peeve of a lot of customers when they actually see the implication of what had just happened, is the incoming case descriptions are really either incomplete. We have a lot of customers that have just got 2-word descriptions, right? And now you're expecting AI or any tool set, so to speak, to decipher those 2 words or a blank description sometimes and say, well, figure out for me what the issue is. Again, the input is going to be completely, so I've processed all this beautiful data, but what do I do about the data that has got 2 words or has something like device failed with nothing else in there? And sometimes we have 1 and 2 happening together, where you would have a classification that completely contradicts what's in the description. So if you have, and this is very, very common, because think about it, you may not have put in a discipline of going in and changing the description, because who has time to do that, right? When I'm completely measured on average call handle time, for me, or even a field technician or repair person, I got a description, I diagnosed the entire issue, I figured out that this device failed or boot up issue was really a firmware update, right? It's a firmware update issue. And so I went in and I did my job. I went in and selected firmware update as the root cause. The resolution code is fine, but I didn't go in and change the description of what the issue was in the first place. I did not kind of have the discipline to then go in and change, or translate what the customer really meant. And now you have all of these records and beautiful volume of data lacking in quality, where there is contradictions. The incoming case description doesn't match the resolution that happened. These are the kind of things that you can absolutely put in a process working with us to at least capture correctly. So now from this point onwards, you are capturing the right data, and we can work together in terms of some of these low-hanging fruit. There's also a telephone game, which is one of the reasons why. So you have super small descriptions, you have contradicting descriptions and classifications, and then rightly so, the customer describes an issue a certain way. The tier 1 person or tier 1 support agent obviously is not as deep into the product as tier 2 in terms of technicians, repair technicians, or field technicians, or even engineering, which is tier 3. And so they captured the data based on their understanding. They may be capturing data that may be technically incorrect, or that may be super abbreviated compared to the customer making a long description, or having a long description. The customer went in and said, I'm seeing this noise come in every time I go beyond a certain point, and I see some errors appearing, and give a long description, and the agent put in 2 words saying customer is having device issues, and send it across, and escalate it if they could not fix it. So this telephone game, in terms of the description not being captured correctly and flowing, frustrates the tier 2 specialist, saying, hey, I don't know what to do with this description, right? It doesn't give me anything to kind of go off of and stuff like that. And so I think that is the 1 and 2, the biggest thing or biggest value that Neuron7 provides is kind of twofold. One is we will actually work on analyzing the data ourselves, and giving you some truth from it. The other thing is we'll give you pointers on things that are low-hanging fruit that you can go implement within your CRM tool immediately, and educate the force, the service force, so to speak, so that they're capturing these 3 or 4 things accurately that can be game changers for you when you basically get into the AI mode. And you probably want to do that today, not wait for it. The number 3 is kind of related to what I just said. There is a perception, a lot of times we will ask product owners, we will ask service executives, tell us what your top issues are. And humans are biased about everything. They have made opinions about people that report into them. They've made opinions on what are the most occurring issues, all of that stuff. And that's where reality sets in when we kind of come in with our own data. And so Neuron7 has clusters that we may show have different results in terms of what your top issues are once the classification, and then when 1 and 2 is fixed, or even before 1 and 2 is fixed, to kind of give you the whole perception versus reality. And there's a lot of customers that are pretty surprised at what comes back from it. And so I think my biggest takeaway from this is there's a lot of low-hanging fruit on the CRM side, that even if you are going to take on an AI project 6 months down the road, you absolutely should today, from a fiduciary duty perspective, kind of go in and figure out things that you need to change. Because literally, if you wait for 6 months, your future AI is missing out on 6 months of things and reality of your business, just because you did not go in and make some of these changes. So that's CRM data, very easy to understand, since it's tools that we use day in and day out, and this is ServiceNow, Microsoft, doesn't matter, it happens everywhere. The second is the top 3 things on unstructured data. And unstructured data is technician notes, text data, knowledge articles. For 20 years, we did a lot of knowledge implementations ourselves, so we know that what are the pluses and minuses of having knowledge and search. So a lot of people said, here's how I'm going to solve cases. Here's how I'm going to aid new folks. Here is how I'm going to aid first call resolutions. I'm going to create very good knowledge articles, and I'm going to give search on top of those knowledge articles, and we're going to put that within CRM tools, and that's going to be Nirvana. Well, there is a lot. There's a lot more that goes into making it work. So number 1, there is a litmus test that I'll give you. How good are your technician notes? Take your technician notes, take some of them, and give it to a brand new person who's new to your products. And that's a litmus test. Can they follow a technician note that was written before and follow the process of that technician note and fix an issue? And I'm talking about obviously complicated issues. I'm talking about simple issues, all of that stuff. The other example is how easy is for somebody to just use your search and type in the search with different words, right? Type in, when does error 221 occur, versus what is error 221? and say, what is the right test on error 221, right? You get the idea. So you kind of change the human context of the way the question is asked and see what your search capabilities today are. What you'd find is error 221 as a keyword search shows up 17,000 times across 15 documents. And the poor support agent has to go next, and therein goes your average call handle time. So I think those two are litmus tests that you absolutely should run to kind of see how good are your technician notes, right? You are expecting millions of these technician notes to be read by an AI tool tomorrow. And whether it's conversational AI, a lot of stuff that I spoke about at the start of this meeting is about getting that right, getting unstructured data right. Summaries are fantastic for NLP. One of the things that we have noticed is we can literally take in millions of records. So if I can give you an example, somebody can give us millions of records of technician descriptions, and we will be able to find out and say, okay, CK is a short form for check. 9720 is the name of an error. This group is electronics, since it's talking about memory and software, and what is the asset condition, what is the category. There's a lot of gold that we can uncover through millions of these and kind of create structured data from unstructured data and then kind of use it for AI and NLP. But there's also a way that we can help you write notes that are going to be incredibly important to get right, so that your future AI can process them very, very easily. And so there is something called an ideal technician note that you see here. We're not saying that it needs to be changed or it needs to be get into a structured format. It's just little nuances of how you write notes. Something like this can just flow and make it usable for AI. And you can train 1,000 people in your organization to do it, or 100. And that change can be a complete, a small low-hanging fruit that can be a game changer for your future OI. A lot of times, things like the context is missing. So you'll have an example saying laptop is not booting up, and this is your technician saying that, hey, the laptop is not booting up when I came in, but forgot to mention, is that a Mac or a Windows, right? What kind of laptop are you dealing with? And so the context is missing. Again, when AI is processing all of this data, there are a set of issues that happens when a Mac doesn't boot up versus a Windows doesn't boot up. And we would like to know that because when you have a lot of records with that context, you can classify issues that are Mac problems versus Windows problems and so on and so forth. The last one, this is universal. This is the bane of KB articles. And this is where I have faced for the last 10 years, multiple failed knowledge implementations I've come across in the world, is because knowledge articles by their very nature go stale. They become dated and they lag the real world in terms of the issues that are going on. Somebody has to have 100 device failed, then go escalate to the knowledge group, who then kind of goes in and authors something, or somebody has to kind of go in and click a button that takes a case that was solved to make it a knowledge article, and somebody has to bless it, and so on and so forth. And there is just a whole process, no matter how efficient people try to do it, is always left wanting. And so, you absolutely need predictions. Content predictions are super important, easy to get. It's just a way to write your KB article. So all unstructured data, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here, where if we just kind of give you some tips and tricks, that could be, again, a game changer. All right, I'm going to go to the last one pretty quick. It's both, we said heterogeneous data sets. So it's field service and knowledge articles and CRM, everything comes together, including device data. What are the top issues here? A single view of the data, even right now, is a problem at number of enterprises, right? Their Splunk data or machine data is not tied to service IDs. Salesforce CRM doesn't tie in with SAP repair data. So there is no IDs that are synced. So I have this awesome machine data. I have great sales data, but I cannot take any issue that was a case ID here that can relate to which machine data, which record in the machine data are we talking about. And so now you have two disjointed, beautifully written data sets that cannot be used by AI. It also happens because people have migrated from one CRM system to another in the last 5 years, and so on and so forth. And the question is, what do I do? Do I take everything and transform and remediate it? And how does it work? Device data, the issue with device data, and while everything is, everybody believes that there is nirvana there just by using IoT, we have a different opinion. You can't just take device data and say deterministically what is going on. Probabilistically, yes, but you need diagnosis. You need more than just device data to kind of determine what's going on, because the way most devices are throwing off data, there are too many alerts, right? There are too many issues in the log file showing up. Now, if I go take a look at every single issue, I'll need an army of people. Just kind of, there's so many false positives that it's not realistically possible to kind of just use that and get to nirvana. And then the final thing is, when you look at cross application data, device data, you'll be still very surprised at the number of companies that don't have master data defined. So you want assembly and parts predictions, but you don't have a PIM or a product information management system or a product hub in place where your entire product hierarchy is defined beautifully. Here's the assembly, here are the children, and so on and so forth. And so when we look at the data, we want to give you parts predictions, but we can't figure out the parent, for example. That could be an issue, and so on. And there are ways that we have come across solving some of these things. So again, not all of these are dead ends, and these are things that we can help with. So there you go. We have top 3 heterogeneous data sets and device issues, top 3 unstructured resolution notes issues, and top 3 cache issues. What do we do with all of that, right? There are 2 things that I come across that kind of is so common and so wrong that I had to kind of put that on a slide. First one is, great, I will fix my data when we take on our AI project. And so we don't want to touch all this right now. We have an AI, we are in the middle of an implementation of a cloud project. We're gonna wait for 6 months. When we take on the AI project, Neuron7, we'll kind of go in and fix data based on all these things you're talking about. And I think one thing hopefully is very clear from the last 30 minutes is that if you do that, you're just adding of 6 months of multiple things that are being captured incorrectly, where the AI is going to fail in 6 months. So your future AI is missing out on all of the stuff that is happening in your business just because you're not taking some steps to solve it. So that's a big no-no. You just set up for failure there, or you set up for a lot of pain to do data restructuring. The second one is, great. These are great tips and tricks. You basically have given us top 10 things. Can I go take a big transformation project, start fixing my data right now? Please don't do that. It's important to kind of keep the end in mind. What is it that your AI and NLP models are expecting? And based on that, you can go in and do that. You can go in and fix your data. There are things that may be completely okay, right? 5-page technician notes are beautiful, are easy for NLP to process. You don't need to go consolidate them. You may have a lot of technical domain specific things in your data. We want that. We are very, very good at understanding the domain and concepts from your data and so on and so forth. So there are things that you should be doing and things that you should not be fixing. We highly recommend that you work on what the AI NLP goals are and what is it expecting, and then fix only the stuff that needs to be fixed. So I think what we are doing to help customers through this journey. Number one is we are first looking at a 2-week data assessment exercise and a POC. What we are doing is we're kind of taking all of your data. We're giving you an assessment of what are your top low-hanging fruit to fix today. And we are also doing a quick POC to show you how good would AI behave on your data today. So we run Neuron7 on your data sets, give you your first set of predictions, and we give you in a short 2-week period, an assessment and top pointers. And that's a fantastic way to start, right? That's a way to kind of go in and give you a map before you start driving, or even at least give you a snapshot of as is and things that you should do, so you can start fixing stuff, even if you're going to take your AI project on months from later, especially for people who are starting fresh, people who are taking on a new cloud implementation, people who are going through a revamp of their CRM, or moving from one CRM to another, or they are looking at device data. You are perfect candidates. There is absolute no excuse for you to kind of not look at the AI angle and get things done correctly, the right way, because you have an opportunity to start from scratch and start the right way, instead of people who already have 10 years of data and now need to go fix it. The second thing I'd highly recommend is, AI has become a buzzword. Some people have a different perception. Some people are way on the journey to achieving a lot of use cases. And no matter how you look at it, service, and you look at service, I would highly recommend that you take a single low-hanging use case, prove it out in your AI organization, make everybody believers that that this can actually provide value, because there is a way to get to technical accuracy and the business value from technical accuracy. So if I am able to implement an excellent support tool that helps with call deflection, if I give you the right prediction on the symptom and the resolution action in an automated way, whether it's on Slack, whether it's on your portal, or whether it's in Salesforce, if I'm able to do that 80 to 90% accuracy, with that 80 to 90% accuracy, what does it mean for call deflection? So you can take a small use case and kind of figure that out. And I think that is where we have created our 2-week POC to kind of help out and then go to your low-hanging fruit. But I hope this is, so that's what we would recommend. We'd basically recommend you to either get a quick demo or a trial, or send us an email to get started with your POC, or even if you have any questions on this presentation that I gave, or the tips and tricks, we'll be more than happy to engage and share our learnings.